Shabbat shalom, everybody, and welcome back again to join us on this Shabbat for this week's Torah portion, Bamidbar. And we're going to get into that. We got some things that we need to talk about today, and so glad that you guys are here, friends, family, partners, you all are included. I want us to get into Bamidbar as quickly as possible. And I would love for someone to read Numbers chapter 1. Yeah, let's just start there. Numbers chapter 1. Terry? Okay.
And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation on the first day of the second month, in the second year, after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel after their families, by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, every male by their folk, 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel. Thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies. And with you there shall be a man of every tribe, every one head of the house of his fathers. And these are the names of the men that shall stand with you of the tribe of Reuben.
Because I'm really not going to be focusing so much on the names today. Let's skip down to verse 47. Everybody, if you want to know the names and who's the head of the tribes and that sort of thing, you can read through it on your own. So and these family trees are very important for us, but this is not necessarily our focus today.
But the Levites, after the tribe of their fathers, were not numbered among them. For the Lord had spoken unto Moses, saying, Only thou shalt not number the tribe of Levi, neither take the sum of them among the children of Israel. But thou shalt appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of testimony, and over all the vessels thereof, and over all things that belong to it. They shall bear the tabernacle and all the vessels thereof, and they shall minister unto it, and shall encamp round about the tabernacle. And when the tabernacle setteth forward, the Levites shall take it down. And when the tabernacle is to be pitched, the Levites shall set it up. And the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. And the children of Israel shall pitch their tents, every man by his own tent, and every man by his own standard throughout their hosts. But the Levites shall pitch round about the tabernacle of testimony, that there be no wrath upon the congregation of the children of Israel. And the Levites shall keep charge of the tabernacle of testimony. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So did they.
All right, so there we got a double did there at the very end. And a couple interesting points before we get studying here. But one is, I'm going to start with a question. And why were the Levites not numbered? Well, aren't they? They're all God's people. Let's just say that they all are the part of this family tree of Yah. But
Yeah, right for now. But no.
they did.
But also, you have the age for regular people could start serving at 20.
Mhm.
The Levites could not serve until 30. Which you look at Yeshua's ministry.
Oh, so you don't include them. That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Right.
And so that doesn't mean they weren't apprenticing and learning and things like that, but they could not begin serving till 30. They were set apart for holy things. That means death and war and things really couldn't touch them. So they could serve, and there's a whole myriad of reasons, but I don't know which reason you're specifically aiming for.
Oh no, I wanted some feedback on it. I'm kind of looking at it more from let's take it back in terms of this big overview of all of the scripture at point of view as okay, so we have here, Tammy put in the comments here, they were chosen in place of the firstborn, and I think that was mentioned here as well. And so I take it back to Exodus 19, which is a huge pivot point for us, is actually, which Exodus 19 is the pivot, is actually a restoration or a reiteration of what was supposed to happen with Adam in the garden, to be that from his lineage, from his family, that they're all supposed to be ministering to Yahweh, right? And so that's what 19 talks about, Exodus 32, the golden calf incident. So it's removed from the firstborn of the families and placed in the hands of the Levites. But nevertheless, what's the bigger picture here other than are those that minister before Yahweh not, they're just, it's supposed to be an unending number, a number that's not to be counted because it's not limited to those who are not I mean, does that make sense? Those who are ministering are to be unlimited. So why keep up with the count, maybe? Or as opposed to those that are not, those are the outside of that group. Maybe they're supposed to be counted. I don't know. It was just something that struck me. It's very interesting is that, well, what's that representative? If we're kings and priests, then maybe we're not supposed to be, that the number's too great to count. Is that the plan? I don't know. It's just a thought that hit me there. And then of course the next thing was that I noticed right there in verse 51. So when the tabernacle is to set out, the Levites shall take it down, and when the tabernacle encamps, the Levites shall set it up. But the layman or the stranger who comes near shall be put to death. And so then I think about this, and I think about the restrictions of who is allowed to be considered part of Israel or part of the family of Yah, and who is not, who is able to minister. Who are the ones, it says they're the ones that take down and set up the tabernacle. Well, who's the living tabernacle? And then I think about if someone tries to get in, I'm thinking about the wedding feast of the Lamb, the marriage feast of the Lamb, and here comes somebody who's not dressed in the appropriate attire, and he is dragged out of the place and put in a bad place after that. So I'm just thinking, isn't this interesting that we see these little hints, these little pictures, even within all of this, and a lot of times, and it just saddens me, because there's the other side of me that says, it saddens me because those who deny the Torah, they say, oh, it's part of the Bible. Yeah, but we don't have to do it. Yeah, that saddens me because it tells us who we are and what our future holds. So are we all Levites in terms of technically within the tribes of all the tribes of Israel? Are we all Levites if we find any type of bloodline? No, right? It's not. But what is it? What is the bigger picture? What is it that we're supposed to draw into? What are we supposed to peel back and look at? And I think it all goes back down to we're to minister before Yahweh and before the people. We're the ones to maintain the house. We have a house to maintain, and we as the people of Yahweh, when we come together, we're taking care of the house. We're the ones that have the end of all things. It's a living house because it's mobile. Who's the ones that really can carry all of the things about this living house except those who minister before Yahweh? If we're not ministering before Yahweh, then we have no place. And we're considered, and we're considered a stranger. We're considered someone that should be put to death. Beast. And you think about it over there in Leviticus chapter or Revelation chapter 19, 20, 21, 22, who is it that is part of the New Jerusalem who's not? Who's the ones that are thrown into the lake of fire? Who's not? Who are the ones that have an eternal destiny separated from Yah in a lake of fire, as opposed to those who are part of this kingdom? And so with that, that's kind of setting the stage of where I'm wanting to go, because in Bamidbar, we have some elements that I'm gonna pick up again on this kind of this idea of the Eretz and the Adamah, the idea that I didn't really get to go into too much last week, maybe just touched on it. Eretz, when the Hebrew word Eretz, does anybody know what that is? Land, okay? And Adamah, what is that? Ground or the soil, but from which Adam was made, right? Okay, so Adamah, the soil that's in the midst of the garden, has a special place, and as opposed to the Eretz, which is outside of the garden. Where was Adam, who came from the ground of the garden that produced fruit? and every tree that bore fruit, and every herb by which to eat. Where did that come from? It was coming from the garden. It just produced. And yet outside of the garden, Adam was sent outside of the garden because why? Why was he sent outside the garden? It's not beyond just because he sinned before Yahweh. What was part of the curse? He had to go work. He had to go toil the earth. The earth is cursed. The Adamah is blessed. The earth is cursed. So the Eretz is cursed and the Adamah is blessed. So now when we put together these ideas and these thoughts, is we have a bunch of people that are out there in the wilderness. It's been how long since they left Egypt? 2 years, and it's the second month, right? Is that what we just read? And where are they at? The location that they're at in particular is out at Mount Sinai, right? Or Sinai, if you're from West Texas. So but they're in a place. What does it look like? What is the physical characteristics?
Like now, because there were trees and other things at that point, because they
have fire, but
yeah, so it did not look like it does now.
So it's a thought that it
is rocky.
Very rocky. Israel is rocky.
Rocky and
rocky and barren,
Yes.
desert, rocky, barren.
But I also know that desert is created through sin. Land turns into a desert wasteland through sin.
Okay.
And we know that we cannot say for sure what it looked like because it does not look barren and as horrible as it does today. It did not resemble that.
But we do know that there's not very many water sources. Yeah. So, in fact, Paul says it was the rock that followed them in the wilderness, because we know that's Yeshua. But we do know that in modern day Saudi Arabia, there is a split rock, and it's close to Mount Sinai. But there is the waters of Mirba, and where the bitter waters were, that was on the way. It was like an oasis. So there's oases out there, and yet we have so it's evidence that it's dry. It's not like there's rivers running through there. It's not like there's a lot of rain going through there. The people were complaining about not having anything to drink, and 3 days without water, you die, right? So we know from those elements that it's a very dry and barren place. Okay, so when we look at the wilderness, it's then you look around you. So Pastor Sandi mentioned, more trees in it than what we maybe see today, that maybe they chop down the trees to help make some of the furnishings and some of the things that they would need for the building of the tabernacle, and some elements of cooking. Otherwise, they could have been using dung for cooking, some cow patties.
It's not like they had clean.
Well, who was it? Elijah? Was it Elijah or was it Ezekiel who laid on his side and he used dung to cook his food?
Who's out in the wilderness and that's all you had? I bet you.
That's not.
You're talking millions of people.
She was making a point.
A lot of people. How are you cooking? How are you cooking that manna every day? How are you fixing that up? You making some cakes, cupcakes, making some pancakes?
Israel, a lot of Israel has changed because the people are entering back in and it's coming to life again. I believe that the Israel of old, it was coveted by people not only because it was Yah's land, but it resembled something different than it does today. And it will once again come forth with life.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So keep that thought in mind. So we're in the wilderness. We're setting the scene, and then, but when you're looking at it, the point that I wanted to make is that the representation of the Eretz is the cursed land. Is this a place that they wanted to stop and set up some farms? No, it was a place that they're like, yeah, we can't wait till we get out of here. But they're going to wait 40 years. Right? Okay.
We're running them out.
Yeah. But so it's a cursed place. So if you look at it this way, Adam was sent into exile from the garden. Why? Because he was placed under the curse because he disobeyed Yah. Now, did these people, are they disobeying Yah when they left Egypt to go into the wilderness? No, it's a different circumstance. But they are in exile. They're in exile from the land of promise. They've been in exile for a long time, and now they're being reestablished as a people. Now, what type of people are they being reestablished at? What is it that Yah is really wanting to get a hold of their attention about? A holy people, set apart people, like Adam was in the garden, and Adam was made and created from the ground, from the Adamah, right? So who are the people that have been brought out of a cursed place that are being raised up? What are they in representation of now? A blessed place, or the Adamah. So they are the Adamah in the midst of the Eretz. They have what's happened is now they are living in the wilderness in an encampment that, would you say, maybe we could draw some parallels like the garden in the midst of all of the rest of the Eretz. And in that garden, everything was taken care of. In that garden, the inhabitants of the garden were able to eat. They were able to drink. They were able to also have something else that was a great benefit to them. Anybody know what that would be? The presence of the Creator, the voice that lived and walked among them in the midst of the garden. So this is the setup. This is what we're looking at. And this is what I really wanted to bring out in terms of there's a difference. There's a people, when the land was separated from the waters, it was the Eretz. It didn't start being blessed until Yah created each thing on each particular day. And then it was upon the Eretz that the beasts were made, and so was mankind on the sixth day. But ultimately, the focus is on, are we going to be the beast, or like the rest of mankind that live upon the Eretz, the cursed land, or are we going to be like Adam, who's made from the dust of the Adamah, the blessed land? Are we going to be the blessed dust that, so to speak, that houses and carries the presence of Yahweh, or are we going to be like one who is exiled from that garden and live on the land, a cursed land? And so here we begin to see the distinction. Now, a lot of times it calls the land of Israel within Scripture, it calls it the Eretz. Like people call it the land, the Eretz, because what happened to the promised land when the people set up the high places, and when people didn't keep the Shemitas and the Yovel years, and they were not going, they weren't observing the feast days, they weren't observing the Shabbats. What happened to the land? It became, so the Eretz is again the cursed land. And so the promise is the restoration. We don't want to go live in the Eretz, do we?
No.
Because, I mean, the common vernacular today is to call the land of Israel the Eretz. Am I wrong? Correct me if I'm wrong. The land. We want to live in the land. Do we want to live in the land? Do we want to live in the Eretz, or do we want to live in the Adamah? Right. So things have to shift and things have to change, because we want to live in the promised land, which is the Adamah. We don't want to live in the counterfeit promised land, the Eretz.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of where we were talking about, where I was wanting to get to last week in Leviticus and Vayikra, because it was talking about the blessings of obedience and the penalties for disobedience. And we were able to draw, we wanted from that, we were supposed to draw out the distinction, because one brings a blessing, the other brings a curse. One is the Adamah and the other is the Eretz. And with the Eretz, then there's all sorts of different things we don't want in our lives, do we? And then we think about, what about today then? Well, don't we want to be a people of the Adamah, of the blessed ground, or do we want to be a people of the Eretz, the cursed ground? And you think, well, we're scattered, we're spread out, we're all over the place, like to the four corners of the earth, the four corners of the Eretz, the four corners of the cursed land. And so there's some different parallels I wanted to bring to your some things to think about, things to talk about, because when we think about what happened to Israel, Israel was cursed. They were sent into exile. Where did they go? Where did they go? To the four corners of the world, right? Now, isn't it interesting that we have these pictures of the four beasts? We have the pictures of the four angels. We have the pictures of the four angels that are holding back the winds. And we have a lot of symbolism that's in the book of Revelation that actually comes back here to Bamidbar, where we have the tribes that are separated into four different groups plus the Levites, right? And the four different groups are headed up under four main tribes, and those four main tribes have meaning when we look at, but it's not by the interpretation or the definition of their names, but as in terms of function, because their names mean something, but their names tell us function. It's very important for us to understand as well. And they're all within an encampment, and within the encampment, they are protecting the tabernacle, the presence of Yah, with a specific tribe that is given charge over that area to protect it, even from those that are within the group, within the tribes. But also, there is a protection or a hedge of fire around. And I use that, not that we see that within the Torah, that there's a hedge of fire around them, but we see that in an understanding of what is Yahweh doing, that he's looking out, watching over his people. Let me think about this. Zechariah. There was a verse in Zechariah that kind of speaks to that. Let me just find it. Zechariah chapter 2, verses 5 and 6. Where it says, for I, declares Yahweh, will be a wall of fire around her, and I will be the glory in her midst. Okay, we're going to go back to verse 6 later on. So, but think about this, because before that, in verse 4, says, he said to the man, run, speak to the young man, saying, Jerusalem will be inhabited without walls, because the multitude of men and cattle within it. For I, declares Yahweh, will be a wall of fire around her, and I will be the glory in her midst. So if you think about Yahweh being the glory in the midst of the camp, and that he's going to be a wall of fire, the only time that wall of fire was breached is because of what was going on inside the camp. Whether it was the mumbling and the complaining, was the challenge of leadership, the rebellion. There's a number of different reasons that we see, then things happen. People died. The snakes, the serpents, the scorpions, the plague, there was multiple incidents of those type of things going on. And yet, was the camp ever attacked by any type of army? The only time that it was attacked was right when they were getting ready to leave the wilderness, because the Moabite women who came down, and they were invited into the camp. And of course, then plague broke out. So, but when you look at everything else, the camp is never attacked. Why? Because of that hedge of protection around it. People the armies, their enemies never attacked it. Now, when they were on the road, it was the stragglers got attacked, right? By who? The Amalekites, right? Okay.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, I couldn't clap on the hand, but it wasn't there a time that y'all told them to go fight and they refused to go, and then the next day they changed their mind and went.
Yeah.
And he'd already left their presence, but that wasn't, I don't think they were attacking them at the camp. Just bad choices.
Bad choices. Yeah. Bad choices led to bad things because what happens with our bad choices? Does it allow a transformation of the Adamah to become the Eretz? That which is the blessed ground becomes a cursed ground unless it's stopped, like Aaron and Moses, falling flat on their face and began to intercede for the people. So they went this route. They went this route that took them to Mount Sinai, as opposed to taking the shorter route, the route of the Philistines. So let's look at this interesting thought. And in Exodus 13, 17 through 18, because it relates, because they're in a place that they didn't think they would be. They were taking a different direction, and they thought they were going to take the short route to the land. So Exodus 13, 17, and 18, if someone's there, you can read it.
After Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not guide them to the highway that goes through the land of Philistine, because it was close by. God thought that the people, upon seeing war, might change their minds and return to Egypt. Rather, Yah led the people by a roundabout route through the desert by the Sea of Suf. The people of Israel went up from the land of Egypt fully armed.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we see this. So we see a direction change. It defies logic. They're going in a direction that didn't make sense. But when we have the name of this book that's called in the Hebrew, Bamidbar, it comes from a shortened word of the word midbar. Midbar means wilderness, desert, pasture, but it comes from a root. And I know this is a review for a lot of you, but it comes from the root word to speak, declare, or drive. So the importance is recognizing this, is that now so here we have a group of people that are supposed to be transformed from kind of a loose fitting together family, who is to be transformed into a family unit that is representing the Adamah. They're being brought out of a particular land. They're going into another land, but out in the middle of this wilderness, this dry and barren land. It's a cursed land. It's not where you're going to set up a farm. It is a place that they are observed to be a blessed people, a blessed land of people. And so, but in order to enter into that blessing, certain things had to take place. One, they had to get there. Two, they had to come to the mountain, because what happened at the mountain? The voice spoke.
Joseph was heavy.
The voice of Yah spoke. So they had to come into that place, and so that word, the root midbar, means to speak, declare, or drive. Because when you hear the word, and we get this idea of the Shema, is not just, it's to hear in order to be obedient, to listen, coupled with the action of obedience. The whole idea of Shema is, no, it's the declaration of that word that gives them life, but it's important for them to listen to that word to sustain their life. Right?
Yeah.
Because out there in the middle of the wilderness, there's no other way to be sustained other than by the word. That's how they survived. And of course, Yahweh used the mouthpiece of Moses to help them through that time. But
Give them in line.
It is. The other idea of Mabidvar is when we look at the Paleo-Hebrew inside of it, is we get the picture of the door of the house of the chief that brings order through chaos. The door of the house of the chief that brings order through chaos. Because who is the word? Yeshua, and the word is Yeshua is the door. So the word is the door. And he's the chief of the house that brings order through chaos. Or another way to look at it is the mouth that speaks the promised word. They have to live their lives based on the promises of Yah. Does it sound like what we need to do? Perhaps, maybe it's true, but there's something also very interesting is because I love to see how the numbers of different things, they kind of brings together some thoughts and brings out some thematic discussions. Midbar itself is valued at 248. There's something else that's also valued at 248, and it's this phrase called Kol Yod He Vav He Elohim, or the voice of Yahweh Elohim. It's the same as Midbar. Isn't that something? So what is it that they had to do? What was so important? They had to come out there and discover to step into the land of blessing. It's not about a physical location as much as a spiritual transformation that takes place. That's the same thing that happened to Adam and Mrs. Adam in the garden, where Yahweh would walk with Adam in the cool of the day, or the voice would walk with Adam in the cool of the day. And now they're in this place, the ideal environment. It's not like this horrible desert conditions, because they're under the cloud. They're in this place that when the cloud move, they move. If you want to not get into that hot, blaring, blazing sun, you move with the cloud. You stay up with it. And so this connection with what they encountered in Exodus chapter 19 and Exodus chapter 20 was they got to hear the voice that was coming from the cloud in this place that was to transform them to be a living people.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're just a dead people. Without the word of Yahweh, without the voice of Yahweh, we're dead.
No. Yeah.
The idea of those being cast into the lake of fire in the book of Revelation is the point is this: they're dead. They were dead until they came to the great white throne of judgment, and they're dead afterward, completely eternally separated from Yah and not in a pleasant place. Mm-hmm. And so, but what brings that connection is those who listen to the voice of Yah, those who take action based on what that voice has said. And now they become blessed. They're not cursed, thrown into the lake of fire, but they are a blessed people that now are fruitful and multiply. And where there's a river and a stream that flows directly from where the voice is, that is giving the nutrients for the trees that are standing by that river to bear fruit in all of its season. It's interesting. So therefore, that this wilderness place, and I know we've had this discussion before, but it is about the divine oracles of Yahweh that brings about the transformation of a people. So it is establishing something beautiful. It makes me almost wonder, maybe it was completely barren, but wherever they went was blessed. It's interesting too that scientists are able to pick up with thermal imaging that from space, this is what I've been told, somebody had mentioned it, that they can see where the people walked through thermal imaging throughout the wilderness to the various stops. I don't understand how the science can pick up something that happened 4,000 years ago. But nevertheless,
a lot of stuff which shows you it's probably true.
It's absolutely awesome.
So that everywhere that they're getting the product was their inheritance. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Wherever your foot shall tread.
Is how you can step on rock And it makes an addition.
How can you have a rock beside you and it record what you said?
Yeah, that's that true. Supernatural.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's no, yes. He is from the supernatural realm.
Connie said this. I never thought of the cloud or the fire being that big. Yeah, pretty cool. And then Tammy put in here, Pastor John, that's exactly why we'll have to go back there before entering the land with Yeshua. So some good points there. Oh, Tammy put this earlier too. She said the children of Israel cursed themselves to stay in the wilderness for a total 40 years. Well, that first generation cursed themselves so they could never enter into the Adamah. They became Eretz because of the rebellion. If you think about that. Rebellion is the sin of witchcraft. It's like the sin of witchcraft. That's right. It's true. All right. So that the whole, are y'all with me now with the, we've gone the explanation of the Eretz versus the Adamah, where I wasn't able to explain so much last week on. Now we can kind of see that the Adamah is living. It's living ground.
Yeah.
It's not just blessed ground. It is that too, but it is living ground. So we as dust from the earth and we return as dust, but if we can either be Eretz or we can be blessed, the blessed dust.
Yeah.
And so that's where, when we have this relationship with Yeshua, when we come into a relationship with Yeshua, this Eretz, this ground, this body has a DNA transformation. Whereas it was under a curse, now the curse leaves. Now the curse has been replaced with the blessing, a transformation that makes that even our DNA shows the redemptive qualities of the garden. Okay? Because why? Because all of a sudden we become responsive to the voice of Elohim. When we become responsive to the voice of Elohim, what does our body do? If the rocks can hear and record our voices, and it's been proven with physics, if metal records our voices, what is it that when we, coming from the earth, hear the voice of Adamah, it gets recorded within us, and there's a transformation that takes place. And I think that's something to really reflect on, because it really goes into tell us, and what am I listening to? How much of the word am I listening to, as opposed to other competing voices, right?
I've heard people that are in bondage, like this is just an example of drugs or drinking. When you're polluting your body every time you turn around, your body gets sick. It gets dead. And when you come out of that, when the Lord delivers you out of there, you realize, you just feel different, you act different, you look different, and you realize, man, I was really in a dungeon. I was in the pit. I was down, way down. And that's that he brings us out of that. It's a new, he brings life from death. Because you're in death when you walk around in that state. I'm sorry. When you're, so anyway, I just thought I'd put that in.
Well,
you can tell there's a difference in me. Something's different.
Right? So think about this. Think about how this works out, that when you have the Eretz, if one, the land, the cursed land, or if one is a beast as opposed to being
Yes.
human,
That's exactly.
right? That it's one who's living in this primordial chaos, right? Genesis 1:1. The Spirit of Yah is hovering over the waters. The land hasn't even been separated from the waters at that point in time. And then it's separated, but it's still chaos. It's still a mess because nothing's growing on it. Right?
Segregation.
But one can recognize whether they are of the Adamah, the ground, or of the Eretz. Why? How? Because if one is from the Eretz, from the cursed ground, for the cursed land, they're going to be responsive to external powers. Okay?
As you say that, because not everybody, I mean, we've got people of all levels. External powers, give examples.
Okay, but wait a second, because I'm going to give a compare and contrast. It's responsive only to the voice. Now you can classify external powers as powers, principalities, rulers of this dark world. We're talking about the fallen angels and Hasatan and all of his minions. Or you can look at it in terms of the influences of all the different voices on earth that are trying to form and shape our opinions, or to make us into robots to be obedient to the powers that be, governments and leaders and those that are evil people that want to form us. They want to keep us in fear. They want to strangle us in order to control us. Henry Kissinger said, if you control the food supply, you control the people. And he said that back in the 1970s. So what are they wanting to do? They cut off the food supply. That's what, without fertilizer, they're not growing food this year. So, or they're greatly reduced. So,
And my girl garden.
grow garden, exactly. And on the other side, being one who's redeemed becomes responsive only to the voice. Only to the voice. Think about this. That's what that big event, world event, pandemic event, 5 years ago. I told people, it's like, because I was wanting to hear, what are you saying, Yahweh? What are you saying about what's going on at this point in time? Because there's a lot of people saying a lot of different things, and a lot of people were like, well, you're gonna, we need a jab for it, or we need, shut down, mask, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to all those voices out there. I'm going to listen to Yahweh. And because of that, because the very, very strong, I would say very, very strong opinion is because I, in the middle of all that, I started to go down the road of fear, and then Yahweh spoke to me and said that he had not given me a spirit of fear.
That's right.
But a power, love, and a sound mind. And from there was able to gain a lot of information, a lot of understanding of what trust meant, and to trust him and not to trust man or man's solutions, because that was all fear-based. And from there I began to speak. Masks don't do any good. Jabs are going to harm you, because I went right down that understanding of what's going on, and a lot of people are suffering from severe health effects because of all that today.
They had many have died.
And died. Right.
I had an article about that.
Yeah. So lots of articles are out there on that. But the point is that when we become, and everyone, that's what I began to speak about, and you all did your own research and did what you believe was the right thing to do. But the right thing to do came down to this, making a decision, and that was responsive to the voice. And we can be a believer and not be responsive to the voice, and we'll live in fear. And that's not where we're supposed to live. Hunt the virus, or Nova virus, or whatever those cruise ship viruses are. So I wanted to bring out something here. This is kind of this is from, now we went through this on Walking in Spirit and Truth. We went through 4 Ezra, and we went through it chapter by chapter, and it was very interesting. A lot of things that we learned. This is 4 Ezra chapter 7, verses 11 and 12. And it says, because for their sakes I made the world, and when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now is done. Then there were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. So what happened in the garden? What happened when Adam came under the curse, when that shift take place? There's the Adam and even the world itself began to mourn. It began to travail. It became full of sorrow. But that brings us back over to what I was talked about last week over in Romans chapter 8. So let's go to Romans chapter 8 real quick as a refresher. Because what is all creation waiting for? Waiting for Yeshua.
Waiting for the sons of men to step up.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's over in Romans chapter 8 and beginning with verse 21. If someone wants to read that, verse 21 through 25.
Set free from its bondage to decay would enjoy the freedom accompanying the glory that Elohim's children will have. We know that until now the whole creation has been groaning as with pains of childbirth. And not only it, but we ourselves, we have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we continue waiting eagerly to be made sons, that is, to have our whole bodies redeemed and set free. It was in this hope that we were saved, that if we see what we hope for, it isn't hope. After all, who hopes for what he already sees? But if we continue hoping for something we don't see, then we still wait eagerly for it and persevere.
Okay. All right. So creation is enslaved. It's in a state of corruption, and that includes us. And then we even ourselves are groaning, and yet we have a hope. But in the present realm, we've been redeemed, but we're waiting for our full redemption. So we're waiting for that point in time to take place. We're waiting for that. These things have been put on us, brought into the world because of Adam, to be lifted off of us. And yet there's a responsibility. Let's keep reading over here in with 26. Yeah, read verse 26 as well. Or 27, 26 and 27.
So 26 says, similarly, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We don't know how to pray the way we should, but the Spirit himself pleads on our behalf with groanings too deep for words. And the one who searches hearts knows exactly what the Spirit is thinking, because his pleadings for Elohim's people according with Elohim's will.
Okay. All right. So here's that next step is the groanings. Did you ever think that when we're just kind of groaning and we're mourning through a situation, that it's really our spirit deep within us working through it even without words?
No, there's something better.
He hears and knows that.
Right.
And sometimes maybe even answers that before we even.
Even before we put words on it, right? Yeah, exactly. And then verse 28 is the promise, and we know that Elohim causes all things to work together for good to those who love Elohim, to those who are called according to his purpose.
That's why you should never get downtrodden, because he says everything will come to good. You either believe that or you don't. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves.
We do have to remind ourselves, because it is not.
Think though, if you're not downtrodden, are you groaning? You know, sometimes you have to be kind of on your belly to have those groanings come. You have to be not think the words humble, but you have to see the wrong and it hurt you here, to get those groanings, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Remember the maybe that's not turned down calling, but sometimes you have to get kind of low
Yes.
before those words will actually come, or that's the way it happens with me.
It's something about how there's things and events that happen in our lives, and because of life itself, that breaks us.
You remember
And I know what Jackie is trying to say is that we don't lose hope, and that right. And so we take
Not crushed,
Yes.
persecuted but not
Yes.
abandoned, struck down but not destroyed.
yeah.
I love for his promise with the Lord that his promise will something.
There will be times in your life. You know how they ripped their garments? There was so much pain in them. There was so much, so much of just the enemy trying to suck you down to his level.
Mhm.
And in death, it's that way. You get an idea of it that wretched though I am saved by his design. And wretched though I am, he makes a way and makes new things for me in my life. Wretched though I am, I have a beginning in him when I leave this place.
That's the hope.
Yes.
And that's the hope, because we have to look at it as not everything is Pollyanna. I mean,
Right. There's some deep times in life and you will experience.
it is through those type of trials it's forming our character and maturing us. And so
What happened in 2020 with all that mess, we know now, and so now that it's coming up, do we not stronger and we're just
We
gonna
should be
be
able
able
to-
to
Yeah.
how do you get that
Yeah.
now maybe because we've already been there.
Okay, I love that, Joy, because what you said, and this is going to bring it back a book from J.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit. And when you go back and you read the backgrounds of all of that, or Lord of the Rings, actually, all of that happened in order that the hobbits and people would be strong enough to withstand the coming invasion and things like that. So they had to go through trials and tribulation because something greater was coming.
More testing.
And that is exactly what you just said. I mean, that's a fictional book that has some spiritual roots.
I've seen leaders in the church when I was in the church, and excuse me, that was long time ago. But usually you've gone leaders that are way up. A lot of them have a lot of times gone through stuff that nobody else could. Like, how did you do that? How did you come out of it? How did you handle that? But that testing, like you're talking about, you enjoy, brings you from level to level to level. And there's truth in that. You're not the same when you come to Christ. I mean, it was a wonderful, beautiful experience, but through the years, you see where you were at and where you're now in him. And the beautifulness of it, is that a word? Of what he's doing in your life and what he's going to do. But we have to go through the trials so we can be there for other people when they're going through them. And I'm not talking about just drugs. I'm talking about everything in life we go through.
so when we look at this now, when we're going back to the picture of Israel in the wilderness that's sitting at this mountain, and they've been there for 14 months, and they're learning something that has been
Yes.
totally
Yeah.
outside of their realm. And what is it? That Yahweh loves them and is speaking to them, even though they really don't want to hear his voice. But the wilderness test in and of itself is one of the major tests is on their hearing. Because when they got to the mountain, they didn't want to hear. They didn't want to Shema. They wanted to listen to Moses because that his voice would soften the word a little bit, maybe make it a little bit more palatable. But something was that, Moses, you just find out because that voice is just too strong. But as opposed to this comparison as the way of the Philistines is like living in the dead cursed land. Because the way of the Philistines is specifically speaking about the constant rolling in dead words.
That's good.
And Israel must shema the voice. But if they went the way of the Philistines, they would have been destroyed. Why would they have been destroyed? Because they would never have learned to listen to the voice.
Yeah.
And so they would have just heard what was it when they came to the promised land and they sent in the spies and the spies came back with a word. What was the word that the spies had? Oh, there's giants in the land. We're like grasshoppers. But because in the land there were the Philistines would have been their first obstacle to come up against.
And I tell you, back then it was hand-to-hand combat, you know?
And so if they weren't trained or ready, so now if they had gone the way of the Philistines themselves would have destroyed them because they had not been prepared for battle. That's what we read earlier in chapter 1. They were not prepared or it wasn't in Exodus. They wouldn't be prepared for battle. Okay, Joy.
So do you think that you think about them hearing that, was his voice so terrible? What was so scary about it, I guess? And so here's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's since we do the shofars and we hear that noise, are we going to be afraid of his voice, or are we going to be kind of used to it? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, I'm going to go with this. Back when I preached on something about lions back 5 years ago or something, when I was studying, there's certain sounds at certain decibel levels that will naturally create a fear response
Okay, I remember that.
within us.
Yeah.
And when you imagine y'all's voice and you imagine the thunder and all of that that's going on along with it, I imagine something. You don't imagine some little tenor, you know.
That would be a big bass. The bass can vibrate.
But nonetheless, there's certain, whether it was all of it mixed together, the sounds, I think the decibels were in a place that unless you remember who you are and what you're doing right there, if you let the enemy's voice get in your head, because that's what you do. You have to, which voice did you respond to? They responded to the enemy's voice in fear, ran. Carrie.
Okay, sorry.
Carrie.
Thank you for that.
I've heard before that the voice of God sounds like a Harley Davidson when they've got it revved up, and it sounds like a freight train.
Yeah.
Freight trains are,
They're loud, and they.
Well, okay, think of our,
If you just like flat, like this, on the ground.
yeah, but think of our animals in response to something like thunder or a train or something like ours, or especially our old, they would run and hide.
Yes, yeah.
And at Mom, we had several claps of thunder where our walls, cement walls, shook. And I screamed, and I'm not a screamer.
You know, also there was thunder and lightning and fire on the mountain. They were looking at this and then they were hearing this.
And the tongues of fire.
Mhm, yes. So, I mean, I bet it was like especially living where the years they lived. I mean, you know, this was 3,000 years ago, 2,500 something. Well, maybe not that one. Anyway, after
You're going to the point where I don't want to hear that voice and say the same thing they did. I guess.
Right.
I
know,
agree.
So it's like Sandy says, you have to train your mind.
I don't know.
Yes, Joy.
I think when his voice comes though, the enemy does try to convince him, oh, that's not me.
Immediately,
That's
yeah.
not him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to try to find a way so that we do not hearken to the voice and we reject
Right.
it.
I do agree.
So in Numbers chapter 1, verse 2, there's something that's kind of interesting. If you go back and you think about Sarah, whose servant was Hagar, who bore Ishmael, and she was sent out into the wilderness. Think about this, is with the census, they began to number by the heads, right? because it was to be a status change. They were now counted as a special people. If you think about Hagar's name means stranger. And who was she? She was originally from Egypt, but she would have been considered at this point in time until she goes out there. She was a stranger to the voice, as opposed to Sarah. Sarah knew the voice of Yahweh, and yet Hagar was a stranger to the voice until an angel met her. Until an angel met her out there and spoke to her, and I think Yahweh spoke to her after that as well. But for Sarah and to her seeds, we're talking about a release from the stronghold of the stranger, Egypt, to put on the garments, put on a new type of garment. Now, do you ever think about this? A lot of times we think about putting on linen garments on Yom Kippur. It's tradition to wear all white linen garments, right? Or all white, but more traditionally linen. Linen is considered, the change of type of garments. But did you ever think that really the change of garments in terms of the garments that we are to wear are the fiery garments?
That's right. Come on.
And so what is it that we're experiencing out there in the wilderness is a lot of these different types of connections. And I think y'all were just talking about it a second ago in the second chapter of Acts, when the fire fell on the people. What was it? What really was that being a picture of? Now it's symbolic, it's illustrative of the Spirit of God falling upon the people. But if you think about the fire falling upon the people, it's a reclothing. It's putting on it the garments of the garden. Okay. And this is in Numbers chapter 1, verse 2. Take ye the sum of the congregation of the children of Israel after their families by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, every male by their poles. Their poles were by their heads. The word is Golgotha, or Golgoleth. It's where we get Golgotha. So it can mean the skull or the head. More specifically, when we look at the insight that the Paleo gives us, it speaks about it's the Gimel Lamed Gimel Tav. So it's the picture of lifted authority marked by covenant. So now, because what's it telling people? When we're marked and our heads are counted, or our skulls are counted, in order for a skull to get counted, it has to be lifted up. We can't be down on our knees. We cannot be subservient. We're not bowing to Pharaoh. We're standing up before the king to get our head counted. This is why there's a shift in position. There's a change in the garments that's going on. And why? In order for our head to be counted, is it's lifted up. Lift up your heads, O ye ancient gates, and let the King of glory come in, right? And so when the head and the skull, therefore, are lifted up, what are they doing? They're lifted up to be counted where the voice is enthroned.
Lifted up to his.
What happened? They turned their heads away from the voice that was enthroned, that was speaking to them in Exodus chapter 20. But his desire for us when we're counted is to lift up our head. So it's almost like a redemption thing. They missed it over in Exodus chapter 20, but now we're over here in Numbers chapter 1. He says, lift up your heads.
Yes.
Because it's worth counting. And because when you lift up your heads, it's so that you can hear the voice that's enthroned in your midst. This is the paleo insight that we get from being counted. And by our head. Go ahead.
Well, we also go there, lifted up in worship. That's an example of how we're lifted up to a different level, to a different glory. And what did you say a minute ago? If you can remember it, lifted authority is what now you said? Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, lifted authority marked by covenant.
Yes.
Okay. And another side of this is now they were to bring the half shekel. Not a full shekel, but a half shekel. And and they could count the half shekels in terms of was it the fighting men, right?
Yes.
Okay. The half shekel is also linked to 10 gerah, and which, when you break that down, the ger, the stranger, and the or the hay, the ger, or is a stranger. What's it? And it's presented where? It's presented before Yahweh. So, 10 gerah. It is this. It's breaking that down. It speaks to the stranger. To the voice is restored. The stranger to the voice is restored. The redemption of the rejection of hearing Yah's voice in Exodus chapter 20 is now restored with the half shekel, because it's 10 gerah, speaking to, what is 10, Tammy? What does that speak to?
Just went out the door. I got a headache for days.
Okay, sorry. You're the one that's good on the numbers. But and it's the but again, those that were strangers to the voice now can still be counted and be restored to that voice.
Yes.
We're just because we rejected the voice the first time doesn't mean that we have to reject the voice now. Or we heard the voice before and stopped listening to the voice doesn't mean we can't be restored to that voice. Go ahead, Tammy.
It's the perfection of divine order.
Perfection of divine order. So 10 gerah is the perfection of divine order that restores the voice to our estrangement to the Most High.
And you're a stranger to the voice when you're in the world. That's exactly what sums it up. You're a stranger to God. I mean, if you're his, and he's going to get you, okay? He's going to bring you in if you're truly his, pretty much. So unless you get so decadent, you can't go there. But you're a stranger, You're not hearing him.
Right? So the shekel is broken down in the paleo between the sheen and the coal, and speaking, the sheen is the fire and coal is the voice. So the sheen coal, or speaking of the half shekel, it's symbolizing the fire voice, or this partial restoration that they're experiencing, because they needed the other half of the shekel to be a full shekel. But it's made full in Messiah. So the fire voice that gives us the fire garments.
Maybe that's what they heard on the mountain. Hole in the voice and the fire voice. I mean, it's a possibility.
And by the way, Linda or Lou, if you've got something you want to interject, just go ahead and unmute and interject at any point in time. And I'm not keeping up very well with the chats and trying to get through this, but so when we think about the Shema, where we have the Sheen and the Mem and the Ayin, the Shema itself, which we're going to have next week's Torah portion. No, I'm sorry, in Deuteronomy chapter 6. That's a few down the road. But the whole goal here is to listen to the voice, right? To Shema, to understand with obedient action, right? Shema means to hear with understanding and obedient action. It's not just, oh, I heard you. I'm doing it about what I'm hearing, right? So in the Paleo Hebrew insight on that gives us this idea of teeth protecting and consuming chaos to open the eye of understanding. The sheen, the mem, and the ayin. The sheen, the teeth that consume and protect. Do you ever think about your teeth? Your teeth consume, but they also protect your mouth. So it's double. And water is mem is water or chaos, and ayin is is the eye or to see. So teeth protecting and consuming chaos to open the eye of understanding. So what is it that Yahweh is doing to us? What is the voice doing for us when we Shema, when we're listening to him? What's he doing? He's protecting us and consuming chaos that's around us.
He's guarding us up.
And because he's destroying and eating up the chaos and the confusion and all of that's around us, it's causing our eyes to be open, to be able to be free, to be open, to understand. Think about that. He's out there, this fire that's around the encampment, as we read over in Zechariah. He's the fire that's consuming anything that's trying to come in. He's protecting us from the chaos that's on the outside of this encampment or this garden in the middle of the wilderness, because inside he is also the voice that is allowing our eyes to be open to understanding. Think, how did Paul say it? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Yah. Okay, a lot of times we like to put a comma in there. Faith comes by hearing, comma, and hearing by the word of Yah, because that's what all of those translators did. Well, take the comma out. Faith comes by hearing and hearing. Faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of Yah. Faith comes by hearing and hearing. Faith comes by hearing. I'm going to say that for emphasis. Faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of Yah.
Yes.
Don't put a comma in there, as opposed to it comes by hearing, and then more specifically the word of Yah, even though you can understand it that way. But faith comes by hearing and hearing. Faith comes by Shema and by Shema.
And if you get in a couple of books that were taken out of the canon, you get a new perspective and a new opening up of the heavenlies, the spiritual realm, and this realm. And like, it's right here with us. It's all right here with us.
So Yeshua said in John chapter 10, verse 27, my sheep hear my voice.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what did Yeshua say on the mountain then? What did Yeshua say in his Torah? If he's the living Torah scroll, what did he say? And my sheep hear my voice. If one's not listening to that, are they his sheep? Okay. Now, the other thing is that, well, I feel like I'm his sheep, but I don't understand how the Torah relates to me today, because Yeshua did. He fulfilled all that. So now I just got the New Testament I'm going to just focus on. Okay. All right. Though it may not have a lot of understanding for you, or you can see certain points and say, okay, there's some historical value and there's this and the other. But
Your eyes will be open though.
But then let me just say this. Then that faith that's in the first 5 books will come by hearing and hearing. You don't understand it, but it says to do like, don't eat pig. Well, hear what he's saying. Stop eating pig. You may not understand it. You might miss it every day. You might miss those coconut shrimp. All right. You might miss it, but if you stop and you, just because you took the action on it and you put obedience to it because he said don't eat it, then maybe next week, next month, next year, you'll get understanding on it.
Yeah.
Your eyes will be open because you took action on it, because action doesn't necessarily is based on our understanding. Action is based on his word, because that's what Shema means. It's based on what he said. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why we should have to come together on Shabbat and gather together as a congregation. No, I'm just going to do it on my own. No, that's not what he said. He said to gather as we gather together on Shabbat. It's not just because we cease from our labors. It's because we came together. Because it's the coming together that we hear his voice. That's why we keep the feast days, because his voice is there. We come into the camp because his voice is there. Because the camp is like a garden, and we're walking with his voice because he invited us there. Okay.
You lose your desire after a while. You just don't want it, and it stinks to you.
And Tammy put in here, obedience is better than sacrifice, because first, obedience does it does come from, not from understanding, it comes from the doing. Obedience is in the doing, not in the understanding. Understanding can come immediately or it can come later. Either way, it's good. Just like I give you my example of geometry. I didn't understand it, but I sure learned those postulates, the theorems, the axioms and all of those things. I learned them like I would learn the word of Yah. And at one point in time, I had the aha, I get it. I can do the logic. Give me anything. I'll do the logic on it because I understand the word, because the word also made sense. All of those memorizations brought me to the aha moment. I want to jump. There's more to get into in terms of the words of the Philistines. The words of the Philistines are the dead carnal words. The words of the Philistines are those that say, well, we don't need to do Torah. We don't need to keep the Old Testament. That's what the Jews did. That's what they do today. We don't need to do that because we're Christian. We're on the other side of the cross, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, those are dead carnal words. And we hear that if you listen to Christian radio, you're going to hear dead carnal words. Not all of the words. Sometimes they get it right. Not all the words, but it's very important for us to catch and listen to the voice of life and understanding. Again, our alignment within the camp is very important because it's how the garden works. Okay, there was order in the garden. This camp is a garden in the middle of and all of the tribes are set up in a particular order. The order in the camp is our life. It is our daily life. And because it is the life of the camp is the order of the camp. The life of the camp are the people of the camp that are within the various tribes. In that is the life. And so there's some connections that I wanted to bring into because the camp is now divided into 4 different quarters, right? 4 different segments. And they're led by a particular tribe, yet every tribe is significant. But we have a connection with, we've talked about this before, and because even the banners themselves that each tribe had represents the 4 living creatures, right? Why is it 4 living creatures? Because the 4 divided segments are living. And they just have different faces on them because the different faces have, it's not about the picture of it as much as it is in terms of what they do. What is their function? The function within all of it. The 4 living creatures speak of the man, the lion, the ox, and the eagle. And it's not just an abstract vision like you would see over in Ezekiel. It's not just Ezekiel chapter 1, 5 through 10 speaks about this, that the 4 living creatures and their appearance had the likeness of a man, and every one had 4 faces, and every one had 4 wings. And as for the likeness of the faces, they had a face of a man, a face of a lion, a face on the right side, and they had and they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. They 4 also had the face of an eagle.
They were on a wheel, or they were.
That's another picture.
Yeah.
And then in Revelation chapter 4, 6 through 8, and there before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around about the throne were 4 beasts, full of eyes before and behind. Now understand, beast does not necessarily mean beast system or anti-Messiah type beast or anything like that. They're just 4 creatures, all right? And the first beast, the first creature was like a lion, the second like a calf or an ox, the third had the face of a man, and the fourth was like a flying eagle, and the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about them, and they were all full of eyes, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. So that's out of the King James Version. And so in context with Numbers chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, Yahweh spoken to Moses and Aaron, saying, every man of the children of Israel shall pitch his own standard with the ensign of their father's house far off about the tabernacle of the congregation shall they pitch. So what is the crest? What is the symbol? What is the picture? What is the flag of the ones that are on each side of the tabernacle? It is these pictures related to the 4 tribes of Judah, Ephraim, Dan, and I said Judah. Reuben was the other one, right? Okay. So each one of those gives us also a prophetic picture that we also need to have. And with
They're 2 separate things.
the face of the man is the face of Adam, the face of reason, rulership, and priestly function. The face of the lion, Judah, kingship, and I think that was Reuben. Reuben is the first face. Yeah, first face is didn't get in my notes. The face of the lion is Judah, which is the kingship and courage. We're talking about royalty, boldness, and protection. So we need to look at this as that I'm not just one in this camp, but I'm all of this. Okay? Because we got to think about this. We're talking about the garden, the picture of the Adamah within with this special place in the midst of the Eretz, of the cursed land. Okay? This is a place, and what's there? Adam is the living. And so we have reason, rulership, and priestly function. We have royalty, boldness, and protection. We have Ephraim. We have servanthood and sacrifice. We have Dan, prophetic vision and swift judgment. This is the picture of these 4. These are the picture of these 4 banners. The face that's on each one of these banners. These are the ones that is representing who? The living body of Messiah. The living body of Messiah is not limited to. Now remember this. What have I taught on the gifts of the Spirit? Are the gifts is one person just the healing specialist, and the other one is the prophecy specialist? Right. It's not one has any particular captured aspect of a gift, saying this is my gift, this is my trade craft. No, it is every gift is for everyone according to the need. Right? So now some people might be more familiar with it one because they've practiced within that more often. And so they can be just as gifted with the word of knowledge as somebody else. They're just not operating in it because they're not, for some reason or another, they're just more comfortable operating in another one. It's just the way we are. We tend to gravitate to the one we're used to. Right?
You can have several.
Okay. If you're right-handed, how often do you use your left hand? But if you use your left hand, you're getting pretty good with your left hand.
Well,
Just saying. All right. See? So the whole purpose, though, is understand is that, yes, we have a place to minister before Yahweh. Yes, we have a place that's in royalty and in boldness and in protection. We have a place that is strong for labor and sacrificial service. We see a lot of that lacking within the body of Messiah, and fruitfulness. And then what about this prophetic side? This heavenly perspective that's swift, that's renews, that's prophetic vision and swift judgment. This is what the body of Messiah is supposed to do and be functioning in and operating in.
Yes.
Okay? So our goal is to align with this. But what happened, though? It says here, we just read it. It was over. And what is it that the 4 beasts do in the book of Revelation? What is it that they're doing? In the book of Revelation, they do not rest day and night, and saying, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." A lot of times we like to say, well, that just reminds me of Isaiah chapter 6, when we see the seraphim around the throne, and all they're doing is they're saying, "Holy, holy, holy is Lord God Almighty." But wait a minute. If we're looking at in terms of the picture and the function of the beast, if we are the picture of the function of this beast, this 4-sided beast that's around the tabernacle, it is the picture of Adam, the picture of man, the picture of mankind, the redeemed mankind that's in this stage of this process of maturing and worshiping. It's not just one holy. It's not two holy. It's three. It's a progression of holies.
Well, and there's the prophetic of what they are, and then they are, okay? What irritates me sometimes is people that want to tell you everything in Revelation is a metaphor, or everything that is in Ezekiel is a metaphor. No way. It's got the prophetic, the gifts in it. It's got in heavenlies. It's got, they're real. These creatures are real, okay? What the host, HOSTS of heaven, there are hosts in heaven and they do things. And, that spiritual realm, whether you like it or not, is right on us and around us. So,
always uses the physical to teach spiritual because it's easier for somebody to understand than spiritual.
the life.
So what here is that we're looking at how the tribes in their encampment and by their standards, and the standards again is talking about the flags, right? Okay, is mirror or heaven pattern around the tabernacle. That's where we get this the bees, these big Ezekiel and but when we look at it in terms of understanding what the standard is the word is degel, and the Paleo Insight, it gives us the door lifted in authority or the entrance guarded by living order. So what is it about the people? It is that the entrance to the tabernacle, entrance to the very holy of holies, is guarded by a living order. This is why we know that there's something special about the Adumah, which is long for Adam. And or Adam is the strong blood. By the way, that's another way to look at it. Blood. You can break that word all the way down to its very roots of it, the strong or the leadership of the blood. Yeshua, the second Adam. But when you look at the value of the word degel, it's the value is 37. It's to another word of the same value, which means flame, and it speaks about the fiery presence. So now the fiery presence, when we're talking about the standards, these banners that represents the tribe, what's it speaking about the tribes? The tribes are a fiery presence.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. The tribes that we read over in Ezekiel are unwalled. Why? Because they're surrounded by a fiery wall, a fiery hedge, and where is it this fire all connected to? Well, can we talk about how Adam was also called the Ish, which was fire, and the second Adam would therefore be fire, alluded to that that Yeshua was fire.
Yeah, he is. It says it several times.
All right. So when you look at the description in Revelation chapter 1, what's it look like? Fire. When he comes riding on a white horse, what's he look like? Fire. Okay. So what is it about the encampment with Yeshua in the middle of the encampment? It's fire. The glory of Yah rests upon the camp. It's living. Outside of it's all darkness because it's under the curse. But this is the living place that Yahweh has called for the people to live together in. Now, what is it? What happens that takes place in the book of Revelation? Now, when we're talking about these four creatures, we have in Revelation chapter 4, these creatures are worshiping with ceaselessly, holy, holy, holy around the throne, right? What do these creatures also release in Revelation chapter 4? They're releasing judgments, right? The seals, the trumpets, and the bowls, while they're guarding the Adamah's redemption. So what does that mean? So they're guarding, okay, what are the function of these tribes? Because of their leadership, they guard the tabernacle. The Levites guard the tabernacle. They're guarding the camp. They're guarding the Adamah. They're guarding the garden. This is what they're doing. This is their function. Those that are outside, well, what is it that those on the outside want to do? What if we look at it as these are the redeemed of mankind that are living within the camp? Then what is it that those on the outside of the camp what do they want to do to the camp? They want to destroy. They want to destroy because look at what's happening in our culture today. They want to cut off food supplies. They want to put diseases on us. They want to destroy our economy. They want to bring war. Those are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. That's okay in Revelation chapter 6. So we see that these worshiping it creates this. We see in the seals and the trumpets and the bowls. What do those judgments do? They guard the redeemed. They guard the redeemed. So you can look at it in terms of the greater Exodus. What is it that happens to those that are in that go into the greater Exodus? They are encamped in a wilderness place that Yahweh is a hedge of protection around them. And while the judgments are being released upon their enemies, because even in Revelation chapter 12, what does Hasatan want to do? Hasatan is doing his best to go after Yahweh's people, and then except the earth opens up and swallows them.
And our enemies will be.
So those are judgments. In Revelation chapter 5, we have a lion. The man or the ox faces, the man or the ox faces fulfilled in the sacrificial kingship. Revelation 6 through 18, the eagle faces, the eagle face carries the remnant. Think about that. The eagle carries the remnant. The creatures orchestrate deliverance amid the Eretz judgment. Eretz, the land judgments, the cursed land judgments. So what does the eagle do? It takes the people on the eagle's wings, right? Picture in the millennial reign, who is ruling with Yeshua? Yeshua is in the middle of the camp. The camp is all around Yeshua learning Torah. Who's outside of the camp? The rest of the world that just still has not made Yeshua king. Who gets to call the shots? Those who are taking their authority, that message of authority from the king.
Take it seriously.
Right? And Revelation 21 and 22, we have the new Eretz and Adamah. There's a new heaven and earth. You might even say that the Adamah could be like heaven, the place of heaven, but I would prefer to say that it is heaven has come to earth. It is the place of the garden because we have the New Jerusalem that comes down onto the earth. But what is the build? Is the New Jerusalem a structure, a physical, architecturally designed structure? Or is it the people that are occupying a particular territory on this geographical location on the earth? Right? So what is it? Are we looking for? I mean, we have a picture, or we have these illustrations, or we have an understanding of the gates and the layers of the stones that are on the walls and that sort of stuff. But what's it really telling us? Are we not living stones?
Yes, and indeed not coming here and setting up his kingdom.
Okay. So these we are so concrete in our understanding that a lot of times we like to draw these pictures, and because we know what it means to have a house or to have a building or a castle or a walled city or something like that, right? We have all of the illustrations throughout all of history. We have plenty of those.
But get out of the.
Those are just a type and shadow of something. The living matter of the living stones that are joined together, that is infused with the living Elohim.
Can you imagine It's gonna be, I mean, wow. Wow, wow, wow.
The new heaven and the new earth, the new Eretz and Adonam. There's no more curse. The river flows through from the throne, which is the representation of the voice. Okay,
The rivers.
right. The throne is the voice. The throne is a representation. It's just a picture. In reality, it's the voice. No one is. We know that Yahweh does not have a body to be seen. He has a voice. Yeshua is the manifestation of he is the body of the Most High. So when you see Yeshua, you've seen the Father who has not a body.
He is like and this, I don't really like to say it this way, but he's an entity. You know, you can guess all you want what he's like, but he's an entity of some kind. He's spiritual. He's man and spirit, both.
So this river of life flows from the throne or the voice. So what is the river? Huh? Think about it. Is it physical water? Or what's streaming from the voice? What are the words that are streaming from the voice? Okay. And it brings life to the trees. It brings life to the trees whose leaves are the healing of the nations.
On both sides of the river.
Okay. And the New Jerusalem descends as an eternal tabernacle, 4 faces now embodied in the redeemed multitude. So what does the New Jerusalem look like? It says it descends. Well, if this New Jerusalem descends, what's it talk about us as a people coming down upon Jerusalem, coming down into a particular place? Another way, when you say I'm going down to Canyon, what do you say? You're not necessarily descending on like you're flying in and going to land at a non-existent airport in Canyon, or you're going down to Amarillo. Doesn't mean you're flying into Amarillo. It means you're going over to that place. Just a thought. Just a thought. So,
For spirit, soul, and body.
let's take it to another level.
Next time, we're probably just.
Think of replication here. What about these 4 creatures, the 4 winds and the 4 winds? Zechariah 2:6, where we stopped at 5. Zechariah 2:6 says, "Ho there, hello there, flee from the land of the north, declares Yahweh, for I have dispersed you as the 4 winds of the heavens declares Yahweh." We see in another place it talks about in Enoch chapter 18, 1-5 and verse 76, where it speaks about 4 winds or 4 ports guarded by angels.
The winds are a big deal.
The final judgment restrains the winds until the righteous are gathered. And for Ezra 13, 1-13, we don't have time to read it today. Sorry, Terry, but y'all can go and look at it. Where it says the man from the sea. When we did for Ezra, we talked about this. The man from the sea is Messiah. He gathers the scattered from the 4 winds. He gathers the scattered from the 4 winds. Jubilees chapter 2:2 and also 50 verse 5 speaks about the 4 winds as cosmic forces restrained into the Jubilee restoration. Creatures symbolize ordered creation renewed. Let me just put it this way. What happened to the people of Israel when they went into the land and they did not shema? They were scattered. Where were they scattered? To the 4 winds. Scattered to the 4 corners of the earth. Okay, so what is it about the angels that are holding back the four winds? Is this really telling us? Is this telling us something? Maybe that it's perhaps that the scattered of Israel are not able to regather until the time of judgment, in which then the angels are able to release the winds of judgment, but that's when the people are regathered. There's a scattering to the four corners where the four angels are, where the four winds are, and a gathering at the end upon the release of the judgments. Let's look at this a little bit more.
No, the winds we have are getting up. There's something in that.
In the Bamidbar wilderness, in the wilderness that's under the curse,
Yep.
There's a regathering point where the voice speaks and realigns the four faces. Or what is another thing that it tells us? On the east, on the west, on the north, and the south. Four faces of directions, four faces or directions of scattering, four faces or directions from which the scattered are regathered to a
Israel
one
come back
particular place. There's a restraint of the winds. The four angels that hold the winds, which is the judgment that falls upon the cursed land or the Eretz, until the 144,000 are sealed on their foreheads. Who are the 144,000? A lot of times people speculate, who are the 44,000? And these are 144,000 evangelists that go around the world that no one can touch and anything like that. I'm going to go back to something that I don't remember who taught this, so forgive me for not giving this person credit. But where are the 144,000 sealed?
Sealed or at?
On their foreheads,
Yes.
right?
Their hands and forehead.
Why? Because they are the ones who shema. And it also speaks about these are the ones who are counted on their head. So we have specifically 144,000. I didn't do these numbers, but somebody else did the numbers. But the number of cubits within the Holy of Holies is 144,000 cubits minus the space of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, when you think about this, and you think about who are the 144,000, these are the ones that are marked, that are able to be around the voice, around the throne, around the Ark of the Covenant, in a set apart place, the Holy of Holies, in a protected place. So that would be the bride.
That would be us.
That would be the bride.
Yes.
That would be. No, we're not talking about the number of people like the Jehovah Witnesses would say or something. No, they limit it to 144,000. No, we're talking about those that fill the space of the Holy of Holies are the ones who are marked. How many that can be is up to y'all. So so this is what makes it very interesting to me, is that the 144,000 is now, remember, when we see that, who are these marked ones of the 144,000? Look at it as in terms of function, not as a particular people segmented out, as in terms of only 144,000. Think of it as who is filling the space around the throne or around the voice. Who is filling the space, like we've been talking about the Adamah. Who's in the Adamah? and who's not. Who is that person? Joy, you said the bride. This is the description of the bride. Why? The Ish and the Isha. The Isha is the one who contains the fire, right? Picture the man and the bride. The man is the Ish. He's the one that is just going to blow forth in one direction, and the bride surrounds and covers that fire. So it's operating the way it needs to be operating. Why? Because it's supposed to be fruitful and abundant and bear much fruit. So that's the purpose of the husband and the wife and the coming together as one. Terry.
Several years ago, on the 144,000. I wish you would do that again.
So what we're tying together here now with this Torah portion and with the sealing of the 144,000 and the counting of the heads, what we're tying together here is that it is specifically saying that there is a number, a census, a number of believers who are sealed. This is the sealed remnant. So 144,000 gives us a lot of pictures. It speaks to a lot of different layers and levels, and we probably need to revisit that, Terry. But specifically, it's talking about the sealed remnant as opposed to those who are not sealed. Okay?
And there's a lot in the churches that aren't sealed.
So we like to think concretely, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 143,999, 144,000. We like to think concretely that there's exactly that. No, that's not what it's talking about. Because Revelation is you can't look at it as we're getting a complete word picture of this is this and this is that. And then if you look at Book of Revelation and then you compare it to Enoch and you compare it to Jubilees and you compare it to for Ezra, you are now starting to get a picture and understand. You look at Daniel, you look at Ezekiel, you're seeing that it's so much symbolism, and then that we just want to say, okay, it reads like a newspaper, but it doesn't. Right. It makes us inquire. It makes us dig in. It makes us change our opinion when our opinion was wrong, right?
Takes us from the mundane into the spiritual on different levels.
These creatures are in action. These 4 creatures. They're the ones that release the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, while guarding the throne. Their 4 faces direct the winds. They direct, which are the judgments. They hold back the winds, which are the judgments. They release the winds, which are the judgment. Yeah. They protect the sealed, those that are sealed, while sifting out those who are not aligned. In other words, they're the ones that are sifting out the wheat and the tares.
The sheep and the goats, right?
What is it that Romans chapter 8 is looking for? The manifest sons of Yah. They're waiting for the manifestation of the sons of Yahweh. They're looking for the manifest sons of Yah. Who are those? The sealed ones. All creation is waiting for that time because it's waiting for judgment to be passed so that the earth can start back into its renewal phase. Because this earth will pass away, but it does get renewed with a new earth, a new living earth. And so it goes back to this. These 4 creatures are representing a lot of different things, but they're connected to the 4 angels. It's connected to Israel, who's scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, but are not allowed to return until the time comes and the 4 angels are allowed to release the winds, because it is the winds of judgment, and it's in that time framing that is when the remnant is gathered. And that's why I think that's when I go back to, and I'm looking at the greater Exodus, where they gathered. according to Ezekiel chapter 20, they're gathered in the wilderness place. We all pass under the rod, and then we're set up to be protected in the wilderness. We'll be like a fiery people in the wilderness with a fire hedge of protection in the wilderness. And then where do we go? We descend upon Jerusalem, or we go down to Jerusalem.
Yes.
We descend upon Jerusalem. We go to that place in the earth. Okay.
Just think of it this way. Not everybody's going to be saved, no matter how much we want it, how much we pray. They're just, not everybody's going to be. But you got to think, in heaven, when the Lord sets up his kingdom here on earth, there's no more tears. There's no more sorrows. There's no more hurts. So, some way, if you can't be in sorrow or hurts because somebody didn't make it in the kingdom, the way I look at it is, you might not be thinking of them anymore. Okay?
So here's the other aspect of it. What is it about our wilderness journey then that we're walking through? What is it? What is one of
What's to come?
preparation? And the key to get through the wilderness journey is perseverance. Because in the current wilderness, there's a famine for the word of Yahweh, right? According to Amos. And but when we listen to that word, we find that's when we get into alignment with the word. When we hear that word, because we have an obedient heart, because we're shemaim, because we're actively listening with a desire to follow, then what do? We get into alignment with it to do what it says, whether we understand it or not.
Right, exactly.
Right? Doesn't mean that if we have someone that is that we're able to execute capital punishment upon somebody through stoning. That's not what it's talking about. Our alignment is because we want to hear what the Spirit of Yah is about. Mm-hmm. What we want to do is do what Yeshua did, and that's to redeem, to pull in, snatch out of the fire those that are we would love to point our fingers and throw stones at the people that we deem as not following Torah. I say that we would love to do that. No, that's not what we want to do. Our desire, even though that's what people would say we should do. Well, if you're going to follow Torah, you need to start stoning people. No, it's not what we're saying.
We want to pull it in with us.
What we want to do is stone the bad belief systems, put to death the bad belief systems that lead people away, that lead people in deception, that lead people in down a path of disobedience, right? And a lot of that's coming from the pulpits today. And I hope that we're not doing that here. So we certainly appreciate everyone that partners with us financially and prayer partners. And so if you have a tithe or an offering or a love gift, or you're thinking, you know what, I haven't done this in a while, you can go online to our website at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org and just tap or click that donate button and give online. You can certainly do it that way, or you can get our mailing address, and our mailing address is on our website, and you can mail your offering that way as well. We certainly appreciate that. And there it is, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. And you guys are a reason for helping us continue with this ministry, because even though the word is free, the cost of doing the word stuff is the world likes to take its chunk. So anyway, also I wanted to say this: like, share, and subscribe. And when you leave this YouTube, go back into the YouTube and put comments underneath that everybody can see, and tell them about what you saw, what you listened to, what you thought about it, and give us some positive comments. We like those as well. And that way, when someone's looking for a Torah portion, like, well, who else is talking about Bamidbar this week? And you'll have a comment in there, say, great Torah portion, went this direction, or whatever it was. What is something that highlighted that you want to highlight? about it, and maybe people will listen to it as well. Anyway, I think that's it for today. So we're gonna. We didn't start out praying today. We started out reading. We need to close in prayer. So I'm going to close in prayer, and then we will see you all next time. And so, Father, we just bless you and we honor you and we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for gathering us here today. We thank you that that we are able to gather across this continent as well as in other parts of the world. From people listening in, picking up on what you're speaking to your people this year about in the Torah portion. And we ask, Father, that you continue to speak to us, give us eyes to see and ears to hear, and that you would continue to grow our faith by hearing and hearing your word. Father, I ask that you would continue to bless the Shabbat. Let great peace and shalom be upon everybody, so that there's nothing missing, nothing broken, fullness, wholeness, and completeness for everybody. And that's listening, healing in their bodies, order out of chaos, structure out of destruction. Father, we just lift everyone that's listening, the sound of my voice, that your blessings would be upon them in the name of Yeshua. And Father, we just give you all the honor and glory. And y'all come back and join us here at 3 p.m.
20 minutes.
in 20 minutes for the message and continuation. And I can put you on speakerphone too. If you call in and give me your testimony, we'll put you on speakerphone. So, and let everybody hear it. All right. Love you guys. Until next time. Shalom.